coming into us all the time that we're trying to investigate whilst we're on air. So, yeah, to answer your question, Mike, Rodrygo,
this would be to look at that. I like that.
Well, I'm going to talk. He's going to work. No, this could be.
You know what happened? Actually, somebody sent me that message. And I said to them, "Can you send it to Mark, please?" Because he's the one doing Arsenal. So it's good, actually. I think you should read it first.
Should I?
Yeah,
read it first. Hang on a second. Let's do this.
Let's do Rodrygo, and then we'll get to that news.
Now, Arsenal fans are crying out for those big marquee statement signings, and we know that they're desperate for players in those attacking bursts. They're desperate for a striker, which we'll talk about a bit later on. They've been linked with Rodrygo, Brazilian international, 24 years old, currently at Real Madrid, scored 11 goals and assists last season in La Liga, and started, crucially, both of the 2 Champions League games where Arsenal knocked Madrid out of the Champions League. So they've seen him up close and personal. They know what he's about. And he's been really effective down that left-hand side for Madrid over the course of the last few seasons. The left wing is a priority, along with a striker. And the fact that they are being linked to these big-name players will get the juices flowing for Arsenal fans, because that's what they want. You know, Mikel Arteta has turned Arsenal from a team that gets into the Champions League, top 4 as an achievement, to a team that's nearly winning the title. Now, that big final step is the one they need to make. And players like Rodrygo could be those type of players that could just unlock the door for them to just go one step further.
Right, stop keeping us hanging. What's this Arsenal news?
Well, hang on a second. Can you give me permission to read this out?
It doesn't need my permission, does it?
Well, I don't know if we need to double check things here.
Well, that's fine. You can read that. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
The chief correspondent says yes.
Okay, fine. Now, and you're both more important than me.
Wow.
A little bit of breaking news. Arsenal are considering a potential deal for Chelsea's goalkeeper, Kepa, who is available on a release clause of £5 million. That's per some sources here at Sky Sports News.
Like that.
That could be an interesting one.
Yeah.
We know that Kepa has just been at Bournemouth. He's gone back to Chelsea. He has 1 year left on his deal. We understand that a part of that deal to take him to Bournemouth on loan, he signed a new contract, which included a low release clause, which would be £5 million. And therefore, potentially, if Chelsea don't see him in their first team this season, could be available at that kind of price. We know that Arsenal are in the market for a goalkeeper. They had Neto on loan from Bournemouth, funnily enough, who was involved, only played, I think, the 1 game last season for Mikel Arteta. So they are looking for a goalkeeper. Could Kepa be their man, who's
He'd
already
be
in
number
London?
2, though, surely.
You would have thought so.
And is he going to want to do that?
But then teams like Arsenal play 60-plus games. So even if you're the number 1, as we've seen with Chelsea, you're probably going to start 40 games. As a number 2, there's a good chance you'll play 15 or 20 games because of the amount of cup competitions and, of course, the extra Champions League games. So, yeah, one to keep an eye on there. That's coming into us whilst we're on air, so we haven't had the chance to do the due diligence and speak to the right people. And if I get in trouble for saying that, I was given permission by Mike and Carve, and that's on the record.
I'm blaming on Mike.
All right. Listen, I want to go back out to Spain and bring our football correspondent Rob Dorset in, because let's heap him in with the blame. Rob, let's talk Martin Zubimendi. Now, should Arsenal fans be a little bit worried, because he was asked about a move to the Premier League and he played it down before Spain played France? Should Arsenal fans be a little bit concerned?
I'm a little bit concerned about whether I can talk about Martin Zubimendi without checking with Mikel Arteta first. But listen, let's just do what we like now. Mark's put it out there about this latest line, so we can say exactly what we want, Mike, can't we? Listen, Arsenal thought they got Zubimendi. They thought it was a done deal, as far as I'm concerned. They agreed a fee with Real Sociedad, which matched the £51 million release clause that he's got in his contract. A week ago, we were reporting that only the final bits of the deal needed to be done in terms of his personal terms, his contract, and the final structure of payments with Real Sociedad. And then Zubimendi went and said that Xabi Alonso is his, quote, idol. And that was just after Alonso had taken the Real Madrid job. And so we know that created a lot of waves with Arsenal fans who thought, oh no, does this mean that Zubimendi's having cold feet right at the last minute? And of course, we all saw what happened previously when Liverpool thought they'd got Zubimendi, only for him to change his mind and pull out of the deal at the last minute. Well, look, I can give some solace to worried Arsenal fans right now. I've been talking to people out here in Spain, and there is a very strong feeling out here that Zubimendi is going to Arsenal. They've got their man, no problem, is the way it was described to me. The deal is all but done. And it was also pointed out to me here that both Mikel Arteta and Martin Zubimendi both come from the same town in Spain, Donasti, a little place in San Sebastian. And we think that Mikel Arteta, or certainly over here, they think that Mikel Arteta has used that to try and talk to Zubimendi and help persuade him to come to the Emirates. Almost, I did that, says Arteta, you can do it too. And Arsenal have had a history of success with Sociedad players, haven't they, of course? Mikel Merino, Martin Odegaard, they both played with Zubimendi at Real Sociedad as well. So I'm sure they've been talking to him about what it's like to play for Arsenal under Mikel Arteta right now. And I should add, from the Spanish perspective, that they are in the market for a defensive midfielder, a number 6. But here in Spain, the full expectation is that's not going to be Zubimendi. It's going to be Angelo Stiller from Stuttgart. And so it's only a conversation that seems to be happening in England right now. Fears that maybe this Zubimendi move to Arsenal won't happen. Here in Spain, they say, no, he's not going to Madrid. Madrid are instead interested in Stiller. He's all yours, Mikel Arteta. So I think that has to come as some relief to Arsenal fans this evening.
I bet it does. Rob Dorset live from Barcelona. Thank you, Rob. Rob, we're going to take a break. When we come on.
No, I think I'm going to look at it from an Arsenal point of view. Arsenal point of view is, okay, Spurs won a trophy, but they finished 17th. We finished second. If we'd been in the Europa League, we probably would have won that trophy as well. We were in the Champions League, and according to our
Arsenal didn't want to be in it, in fairness.
Yeah,
but they didn't win anything.
No, I get that.
I still think that no one at Arsenal is going to panic. I still think it's Mikel Arteta's done a really, really good job there.
Okay.
I don't understand why we live in a society where finishing second to Manchester City or finishing second to Liverpool.
Second is nowhere. Elite sport, second is nowhere. Do they have to buy a striker?
Where have we heard this one before?
Because if they'd bought a striker, maybe they would have won something.
It's impossible to say, because it wasn't for the want of trying. They were in the market for one, but they didn't find a deal that was right for them, either as a player or financially. And who's to say, had they not panicked but jumped in January, and they had a long-term first choice target who they weren't going to sign, would that have meant that their first choice long-term target would have become impossible come the summer? We do know that they will sign a striker in this transfer window. Mikel Arteta has said that they need more firepower and they need more goals. In Arsenal's defence, and I know we've talked about injuries and it happens to every club, their entire front line at some point in that last season was injured. So there's one thing saying let's bring in a striker, because it's hard to legislate for the entire front line being injured. Gabriel Jesus, Kai Havertz, Bukayo Saka, all long-term injuries that they suffered. Now, two of the players that they have been looking at, Benjamin Sesko from RB Leipzig, who they did try to buy in January. The deal wasn't right for them then. They're still interested in him. Victor Gyökeres from Sporting, former Coventry City striker, of course, had a fantastic season last season, had a fantastic season the season before at Sporting as well. He's another player that internally Arsenal are discussing, but they're just two of maybe a number. There might be a couple of other players that Carway alluded to yesterday that, you know, is it just maybe a ruse? Let's just carry on talking about them while we sort out another deal.
Okay.
So they are definitely in the market for a striker. I expect them to get one.